Hey gamers, Olympia's been out for about a month, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to sit down today and go through the NOLT board. This is, truthfully, the same NOLT board that we went through a few weeks ago, but there's like a lot of new responses and a lot of new dev content, so I'll be picking out responses that we haven't gone over and new dev responses. I did have a scripted video slated to come out today, and I have a lot of the work done on it, but I'm a studio art major and it's our last week to be able to get any work done, so I've been in the studio making stuff happen there, instead of making stuff happen on the channel. So sorry for that, but we'll have a lot of scripted content over the next few weeks once I am finally free from all the busyness of college. To kick us off, let's go ahead and look at this Forsburn has lost his identity post. I went over this post actually in the NOLT board update a few weeks ago, but it has been updated by the devs, which is really cool. We can go and check that out here. SBS changed the post to say that they're discussing options, and he said, "We hear ya, and we also have some similar thoughts in our beta team right now. We're not exactly sure how to tackle it yet, but we will look into and test some options in upcoming beta builds." I really like this response, and I'm excited to see what they do with characters like Forsburn. Orkane had a similar post to this, and I play him, so kind of selfishly, I'm excited to see what they do with Orkane as well. But overall, I do think the game's headed in like a good direction with the devs like acknowledging, oh, maybe not all of our characters are in the best spot they could be in, kit-wise. So I'm excited to see where they go from here. Moving on to the next post that I thought was interesting, this poster said, "Cooldowns are bad game design for fighting games." And this is actually a sentiment that I commonly agree with, but I'm curious to see what they have to say. They say, "Please remove all cooldowns from the game as it only promotes camping, stalling, and running away. Other fighting games learned this lesson more than 2 decades ago. If a move is too strong to be spammed, then either tune the move, or bind it to a resource that is generated by actively engaging in combat, like a super bar. Every Raster on Ranked is doing one thing, running away until their projectile is up, and then using that to engage. If they fail, they run away again. The increased cooldown to Olympia's Crystal just does the same for people whose game plan is to still spam Crystal. Run away until it's up again. If these characters had to engage in combat, even if it was just for landing 1 to 3 hits before they can use that tool again, fighting them would be 10 times more interesting, and playing them actually too. The same philosophy goes for installs like Loxodon's Magma Charge. He should not get charges by standing in his own puddle on the other end of the stage. He should get them for throwing you into the puddle and or using magma-based moves against you. In theory, you could give every character an element bar that's used for their more annoying moves and is only regained by active combat engagement. Meaning hitting someone or getting hit like this would stop Rano from needle camping, Zetters from just spamming Fireball, and Shine, and etc. You would not even need to remove the moves from their kits without bar. Just make them a worse version. It could even solve Clarence spamming tilts if each swing into the air would deplete her sword meter, and if it's depleted, she loses the tipper hitbox until it recharges by combat engagement. Would this be a drastic change and means a lot of tweaking and rebalancing? Sure. But the current meta and where everyone just spams stuff is no fun. And since Dan said they don't want to add whiff lag because it would destroy how the game feels, this could be a solution that keeps the game's smooth flow intact. I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I feel like part of the fun of the game is having something really strong on each character, and being able to play into that like power fantasy. Like, I play Arcane, right, and it's really fun for me to use things like bubbles, and for me to use my like really fast neutral area. I feel like if that was tied by something that I had to earn, it would just make my bad matchups feel worse, and my good matchups, it would be easy to earn those things in. So it wouldn't necessarily like really hold me back at all. It would just make the lows feel lower, I feel like, but let's see what the devs say. Dan said, "We're constantly monitoring how characters and mechanics are being used at top level and are exploring changes to push play closer to what we consider healthy and engaging. We're tracking both Raster's current projectile and Olympia's Crystal in that regard. But we also want to let ideas and gameplay shake out instead of changing them so frequently that the counterplay never fully develops. This is really important. I think a lot of players, they see something that they don't like and then they come up with a fix right away, but they don't see the counterplay to the thing they don't like yet. So that's important to know. The crux of your argument is that these mechanics themselves are promoting camping, but that strategy is a core of a platform fighter. Just having platforms to move to and 2D space to control, players are incentivized to use that space to move away until they get the opening that they want. This is across the board in the genre. This is true. This happens a lot in Ultimate, where characters will fish for like one option, and then if they don't get it, they reset. Sonic's a good example of that in Ultimate. Generally, in Rivals 1 and Rivals 2, we try to create mechanics that promote interaction, even our projectiles. because it's not as fun to watch or play against a character who's keeping you at bay the entire match. As for moving it to a meter, that would make specials not accessible or weaker. That would be a heavy-handed solution, and it would affect the game's accessibility at a low level, especially since specials are where new players tend to engage with new characters. It's not something that we would be considering right now. However, we are looking at future changes that promote interaction, especially to Raster's current. And we have discussed and explored very similar proposals of the dead current requiring hits from Raster to go away faster. Otherwise, it takes quite a long time to be removed. I really like this change specifically for Raster, because I feel like currently in his current form, he definitely, it's like, whenever he doesn't have his air current up, he's really bad. So I feel like they can make Raster's kit as a whole stronger, and then make him have to earn his side B. Like, maybe he starts the game with it, and then once it goes away, it's like gone until he like meets a requirement, right? I think that would be cool. However, for like characters like Olympia and Forsburn, they both have timers on some of their specials, right? It feels like it's more like we're putting this timer here so you can't spam this option, right? Or like you get punished for using the option wrong, right? Like if you use it correctly, like if you use Force Clone correctly, you don't need another clone within 3 seconds, right? If you use Olympia Crystal correctly, you're comboing the opponent now. So I feel like those, since it's like if you use your option right, you don't need the cooldown, right? I think that's healthy. However, I feel like Raster's Slipstream is different because it impacts neutral, where it's like you always want it up, you know? So I'd really like to see some kind of change be made here where maybe you can make Raster's engagements a bit stronger in general, but then also make Slipstream just overall like a lot worse and make it where you need to earn it, you know? That'd be cool. Hey, I know that it's y'all's favorite part of the video whenever I hop in here and kind of interrupt the flow to ask you guys to leave a like or subscribe, but if y'all could do that really quickly or leave a comment, it'd mean the world. Using code LastStock in the shop and boosting the videos in the algo helps fund all my events, and it means the world to me that I'm able to host these events for y'all and make cool videos. Thanks for all the support as always, and let's get back to the NOLT board. The next post is a little bit different, but I found it to be kind of interesting as just like a discussion topic that I'm a little bit opinionated of. This poster says, refunds for Challenger Zetterburn. I and many others have spent real money to get Lever's Zetterburn. This includes me, I bought it whenever the game was in the beta. They then released a palette for him, giving him out for free for 1 hour of watching Twitch streams. People should be refunded Ether bucks if they purchased the skin and unlocked this new palette. I no longer want to purchase skins because of this. This is genuinely like such a fair sentiment. Like, I really do get this idea where it's like, why do I want to buy anything if I can just get it for free later on? So I don't mean to like talk down to this person or say that their feelings are not valid, because they definitely are here. But Edalus goes ahead and says, heard you loud and clear on this. It's the weekend, so can't get a definitive answer immediately, but we're looking into it. But from my experience, because I play a lot of different shooter games and live service games that have cosmetics like this, where they do give out old cosmetics for free after a little bit of time, I think it's a pretty standard practice across the industry. But in games that I play like Overwatch, normally what they'll do is they'll give out something new to the skin, right? Let's say if a skin for Tracer comes out and it's neon green, right? The free version of that skin might be a slightly different shade, or she might have different glasses on, right? So you can't get the paid version for free, right? But you can get like a slightly modified version of the paid version. I think a good example of this is, let's say if you gave out a Claren skin that's already in the game and you just took her glasses off, right? And you're like, okay, this is technically like a different skin, but it's the same palettes, but now she has no glasses. So if you want the glasses version, or like, I guess it's a visor, you know? If you want that version, you have to pay, but if you want the free version, it comes with no visor. You know, like that could be kind of interesting, where it's like, if they do like a small like model change, or like Olympia doesn't have her like coat in one skin, you know? Like stuff like that, that could make the skins like separate and distinct and still make the paid versions like valuable and unique, but also have the free versions available for players who are free to play. Looping back to one of the posts that we discussed last week, Elu talked about adding in these kind of character menus on the character select screen to allow players to see little blurbs about their fighter whenever they play them. I discussed it last week, so I'm not going to break down this post again, but Dan did change it to discussing options, saying, yeah, we've been discussing this exact feature, similar to the special move list like a traditional fighter has. It's a bigger task than it first appears because we're working on localization support for the menus, and we need to design new game-ready assets and a design to show that much information in-game. I'd like to get it on our to-do list since it's a great bridge until we have time for character tutorials, but our UI team has a full plate right now. So this is actually super interesting because that means this probably will come down the line pretty soon, but definitely not like within the next few patches. I'm excited to see it though in game. For another dev update to one of Elu's posts that we actually did cover last week, it's kind of ironic this keeps on happening. They did change the friend leaderboard suggestion to discussing options. SBS says, I too would like this, and have brought it up to our team to see if it's something we can do. I know you can do the Steam stats, but I personally always like the in-game tabs to compare scores. So I'm really hoping this gets implemented into the game with haste, because it's so cool to like compare yourself to friends or against players in a crew. For our last dev response today, this poster says, add a "this is my last set" option in the chat. They say it gets really annoying when I just want to finish the set and quit. If I try saying, "this is my last game" and keep going until the set is done, it gets really confusing for everyone. If I could put "this is my last set," my opponent could pick whatever character they wanted in reaction to that. Or we could goof around and have fun with the emotes, knowing that we still have a couple of games to play. This is definitely something that should be free, not the shop, for everyone, and is super important for clear communication. Dan said, I just assigned this as a new default emote to Elian for this. Not sure when it'll make it into the game just yet. I'm glad to see this being added because whenever I play like casual and I play like multiple sets with someone, sometimes I like for my last set to be like more serious, or sometimes I like to do like character dittos, just goof around and have fun. So I'm glad to see that they're listening to community feedback and giving us more free emotes to better communicate in the lobbies. Speaking of this, they also are re-adding in quick chat in the lobbies because of the UI stuff. So that's also coming back. It's kind of related and doesn't really need a lot of commentary from me. So let's go ahead and move on to some of the posts that don't have dev responses that I find interesting. To kick us off, this poster is talking about character balance, and I think their insight is pretty interesting. They say, in my opinion, Fleet and Edalus are where the power level of this game should be. Cake also said this on his stream. I think the best option is to nerf everyone else down to their level, rather than buffing Fleet and Edalus. The most common complaint I see about the game outside of CC and floor hug stuff is that every character is too strong and also evil. This is actually true for most of the characters, they're all evil. While I think this was permissible in Rivals 1, I don't think the balancing philosophy of if everyone is broken, no one is, translates to Rivals 2's engine quite as well. I believe the retention of newer players would be much higher if the average power level of the game was lowered. Also, I don't believe that making a character worse makes them less interesting inherently, and Fleet is a perfect example of this. She actually became more interesting after her nerfs. Before her nerfs, she had the same problems a lot of the characters have right now, where some of her options were so strong it basically wasn't worth using some of her other moves. Also, I think that when characters are worse, it makes it more rewarding and cooler when players pull off crazy combos or cool shit with them. It's less cool when it's free. This is definitely true. I was actually talking to someone about how Smash Ultimate, it's like, characters like Steve, they have some cool looking combos, right? But it's not very interesting because the character's so good, So I definitely do agree on that. Overall, I do think that nerfing the cast in general could be good. But I feel like this is something that would have to happen over time, and I think also general game mechanics could change to do this. Let's say if you made parry more rewarding or less risky on normal moves, not projectiles, that might disincentivize pressing so many buttons in neutral, which might hurt a character like Zetterburn or Maple, or even Rano, where they're wanting to click a bunch of options like that. So I think there's lots of little ways the devs can tune the game, They got lots of stuff to play with, so I'm excited to see the future of this. This post does have a dev response, and I know that we're past that. However, the dev response just says we're keeping this in mind. It's not really a big, thoughtful response, but this poster says, nerfs are warranted, but please do not hit Olympia too hard. They say, is Olympia strong? Absolutely. She has some insanely strong tools that could use some toning down. However, it feels like her design as a whole is cohesive as is, and shouldn't be too harshly nerfed. She has tangible weaknesses, primarily in the form of her high fall speed and lightweight, making her oftentimes explode at a moment's notice. Please do not try to shoehorn her into being reliant on only a few options like several other characters in this game. I will repeat, nerfs are warranted, but please do not go too hard on them. Some number changes, primarily to her frame data on moves like down tilt and fair, should do well in getting her down to a more reasonable level, while still keeping her fun and interesting. She is easily the most fun rushdown character in this game, both to play and to fight against, and it would be a shame to see her get gutted and made a show of her former self. I like this post in comparison to our last post because it's a very different direction of balance that both players want. And while I do agree with ideas from both of them, I think that this post more so has the idea where it's they want to see Olympia's kit stay cohesive and they want to see it stay a full kit where everything's viable. So at the end of the day, it kind of has the same idea as the last post where it's Fleet had her best options nerfed, which made her entire kit viable, right? And Olympia's already at that point, and Olympia is strong. So I do think that it's I want to see more changes like this happen to more characters almost, where maybe their bad moves get buffed up and their good moves get toned down, you know? I want to see more diversity within each kit, which is kind of what they're talking about doing to Forsburn. So I think this post makes a really good point where it's Olympia is so fun as is currently, at least in my opinion and this poster's opinion. So I definitely do think that once the characters feel good and they feel fun, then we can start to look at balance. But for now, I really do like this idea of just slowly tuning characters where it's we give them a small nerf here, a small buff here, just to make sure they're feeling good, and then we can finally look at big patches once they've been out for maybe a few months and players actually have counterplay and also the characters have been optimized, you know? I think that's definitely the best way to go about it. For our last post of the day, I really liked this one, and it's a little bit short, so it'll be nice and sweet to round us out. They say they want an optional rematch after ranked. Here they say, sometimes after a close rank set, I want to keep playing an opponent. Other games have an option to invite them to a lobby or run it back for another first to 3. Even if it was just an extra first to 3, I think this feature is really good for learning matchups. I'd personally really like to see something like this. Sometimes I have matches that are so close and really fun, but then I never get to play the player again, and I don't know what their tag is, because sometimes they have a goofy name in games, so I can't message them online and get games that way. Overall, I think this would be really great to see. It's not something that makes or breaks the game experience, you know, so I'm okay if this would take maybe a few months, but I think it'd be neat, you know? With that being said though, that just about wraps up today's NOLT board video. I just kind of wanted to keep you guys in the loop, and my college finals wrap up early next week, so I'll definitely have some really cool in-depth scripted videos for you guys that I can't wait to share with y'all. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now!